everybody, it's Caroline here, welcome back, and today I am working on the penultimate layout with the April Best of Both Worlds kit, telling the story of the day that my husband shaved his hair. So I am pulling together the scraps that have got lots of greens in them because that's the colour of the top that he's wearing and his favourite colour, and I'm pairing that with black cardstock and inking the edges in black. So I'll put things onto a fast forward and then I'll take you along with how this one comes together when I have no idea at the moment of what the layout's going to look like. Okay, so I decided to just start by matting the photos first of all. I'm working, as I said, with just scraps, so I'm really happy to just work with the sizes that I have here on the desk in front of me. I'm not going to trim anything down. Normally I would trim this mat so that it was a little bit more central on the piece of paper, the photos, but I've decided to just go with it. This piece here is a 12 inch height, so I am going to just center this on the piece of cardstock. At first I was going to offset it and have it over onto the right hand side, but looking at the scraps that I've got and the photos, I've decided I want it to run top to bottom right in the middle of the cardstock, and then I will use this as the foundation and the kind of grounding point for all of my other papers. I wanted the green tone to be the focal colour on the page, but because there's lots and lots of bright colours in this in the palette of this collection, I was really happy to just bring those in. Don't mind that there are some pinks in there when I'm scrapbooking photos of my husband. He wouldn't mind that at all. So just inking the edges so that everything looks cohesive. Typically I end up not using that journaling card which I've just inked the edges of, but I will definitely use it for something else, and I tend to always ink in black so it doesn't really matter. And then what I'm doing here is just lightly, really lightly tacking down these paper layers so that I can move them if I want to, and then I'm building the scraps up on the right hand side at this point, layering up the some journaling cards that I've pulled out so that I've just got the colour and the sentiment. I didn't necessarily want the vase of flowers. If it had just been floral I wouldn't have minded so much, but because it was in a vase it didn't really match in any way as a motif. This paper layer here, the yellow polka, is slightly too small, but again I'm not bothered that the branching strip is on there. I will just adhere it down and then come back in with some embellishment or some other paper scraps in a moment to just hide the little bits that I don't want. And at this point I am just layering things up, placing things around with hardly any adhesive or none at all, just to see what kind of design I like the look of. I really like this as a basis for the page, but I do want the paper layers to come out further to the left and right. So I'm just using a border strip to give the illusion that there is more paper than there actually is behind. Again, when I stick this down on the left hand side, there are some awkward spaces where you can still see the cardstock behind, so that illusion doesn't quite work, but I will keep those areas in mind, and then when I bring in more layers later or embellishments, I will make sure that I cover those up to help with that illusion that there is a wider paper layer as the grounding piece behind all of these other layers. So now I've decided that this is where everything's going to go. I'm going back in with my adhesive and putting lots and lots of adhesive so everything is really nice and secure before moving on to pull in some border strips as a nice horizontal grounding, because everything's quite vertical at this point, so I want to bring in some horizontal strips just so that everything has got something to kind of sit on. I'm actually really enjoying challenging myself with this kit to make sure that I use up as much as possible. Anything that is left over at the end of this layout is going to go back into the kit box where I have some photos already printed and a design idea for my final page. And then once that is done, anything that is left will go into my stash, but I'm pretty sure that all that will be left will be the alphas and the sticker book, which I think is a real win-win for me, because I do tend to give up and put a few scraps into my scrap box. So if I can get them all used up, that is definitely a bonus. Okay, so off camera I have just popped that little tag up on some pop dots and added in a little bit of thread there. And then I'm looking at how I could possibly start to fill in these little awkward spaces. I've got some of these border strips left, which I'm going to keep at the top of my desk because I know they will come in handy for something. But what I'm going to do instead is move on to using some of those label die cuts from that 12 by 12 cut apart sheet. I want those to hold my journaling because although I could write directly onto that stripy paper, I haven't got that much that I want to say for this layout. I'm going to tell a much longer story about this day in the story album, the 6x8 story album that I use. So the label die cuts will be perfect. Okay, so I've added my title in. Yes, I have used an upside down number 3 for my E, and it's really, really obvious, but I don't really care. It's absolutely fine. And what I have here are some embellishments from the Simple Stories sticker book that match the colour scheme and the sentiment of the story, so I can bring those in. They're not a perfect match. The pink in the stickers is a little bit more pastel than that hot pink in the plaid background, but that's okay. So just moving these around, I've got them actually stuck onto an old piece of page protector that I use on my desk. It just helps me to keep them separate, but not sticking to my mat or my desk and tearing. And then I'm just layering them up on top of areas where I'm going to be writing some journaling, trying to fill in some of those awkward spaces so that everything is looking a little bit more like there are paper layers rather than strips of paper, but also trying to keep in my mind that I've got a few areas that I want the embellishments to be. I'm not working with distinctly 3 embellishment areas at this point. I'm just dotting the embellishments around in a way that I find pleasing to the eye, but also that help with my design of filling in those gaps, those awkward spaces. I am really struggling with that awkward space along the top, so the area where it's really obvious that I'm working with a strip on the left hand side rather than one whole sheet of that diagonal print, but then I do luckily remember that I've got the border strip pieces left at the top of my desk, so in a moment you'll see me bringing those in and filling in that gap, and then hey presto, it just looks like there's no awkward kind of up and down of paper layers. It's just a lovely what looks like a rectangle behind all of these other layers, so that works really nicely, and I'm really happy that I do keep all of my little scraps until the point where I either break up a kit or decide that I'm done with it. So this just fits in really nicely here, brings that button, colourful button paper into the top as well as the bottom of the photos, and just fills my awkward space, which makes my heart really, really happy. And here we have the finished layout. I have added my journaling in there, a few enamel dots in the embellishment areas just to create a triangle. I was toying with the idea of doodling a border around the edge of the page with a white pen, but I think once this is in the album look, it's going to really pop up anyway, so I don't think I really need to do that. Not sure yet whether I will switch out this photo, the one with the little fault on it. I'll see. But I'm really, really happy with this layout. I'm really happy that I've got this story and these photos finally scrapbooked. I'm going to do a much longer story about this momentous day in my story album, but for the 12 by 12 layout I think this is perfect. Great that I use those bright greens to match the top that my husband's wearing, and that I have almost finished this kit. I have one layout planned still, and that will pretty much use up all of the products. I'm fairly sure that will leave me with the sticker book, the alphas, and one partial piece of a 12 by 12 sheet that I'm saving. So that's it for now. So I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope that it's been interesting for you. Please give it a thumbs up if it has. If you don't already, please do subscribe. That would be really, really great. And I will see you again very soon with another layout. So thank you so much for watching and take care. Bye.